Joining us now from Capitol Hill, the chairman of the House Budget Committee and one of the architects of the Ryan Murray budget plan, Congressman Paul Ryan. Good to have you on the show.
Paul, very good to have you here. A lot going on. You have said that this budget deal, quote, advances our principles. Marco Rubio said this, though, last night, quote, that your deal is going to make it harder for Americans to achieve the American dream. What would you say to Marco?
Read the deal and get back to me. Look, that's just, I think that's, people are going to do what they need to do. In the minority, you don't have the burden of governing, of getting things done. Look, Joe, you're a Republican. Here's what this does. It reduces the deficit without raising taxes. We prevent the military from getting deeply cut again. And we prevent 2 government shutdowns from occurring this year. I think that's in the interest of our country. I think that advances our principles. Patty and I decided if we require the other person to compromise a core principle, we'll get nothing done. So look for common ground. And that's what we're doing. We found common ground. We know this is a modest agreement. But in this day and age, with this completely broken, dysfunctional government, it's a pretty good step in the right direction as far as we're concerned.
So are you going to be able to convince members of the House Republican caucus that you can bust the caps by $63 billion? And are you assuring them that that $63 billion really will be made up for in the out years? Because you and I both know we've always been deeply skeptical, Paul, and I know you know this. We've been deeply skeptical when you say we're going to spend more money in the first 2 years, 3 years, but don't worry, we'll make it up 8, 9, 10 years later.
So, Joe, 92% of the sequester is left intact. During the course of this agreement, a year and a half, fiscal year-wise, we got the Democrats who were against any of the sequester to agree to 70% of the sequester, and the 30% of relief we're providing, $63 billion, we're paying for with $85 billion of mandatory savings. And, Joe, as you know, that's the autopilot spending that's going on, and these are permanent law changes that we're affecting, which gives us real savings that compound in the out years. Yeah. The other thing is we're stopping these government shutdowns, and we don't think having 2 government shutdowns over the course of the next year is in anybody's interest. Yeah, we'd like to focus our oversight on Obamacare, rolling out a positive agenda, and not having these shutdowns. And the other point, Joe, is 2 years ago, the budget I passed, the Republican budget that everybody thought was too conservative, fought for $1.019 billion in top-line spending. Under this agreement, we won't hit that level until the year 2017.
All right.
So we're ahead of schedule, and we're saying cut more than you spend.
So, Paul, we have 87 people around the table, and they all want to get questions in, but I think I'm just going to ask you the questions. Does it take you off when people that haven't read the budget say that it's going to destroy the American dream?
I thought it was a little strange because the press releases came flying out against the agreement before Patty and I actually even reached an agreement. So, it is what it is. This is Washington. I would prefer that people would actually read what we're doing and see the details before forming conclusions. But I'm a big boy. I've been around for a while. That doesn't really necessarily surprise me.
So I'm curious, just on a different angle on that, because the criticism that Marco Rubio put forward, as well as some other top Senate Republicans, your answer to Joe's questions was people are going to do what they have to do. What do you mean by that?
Well, I just say if you're in the minority, you don't have to pass things. You don't have to govern. We are in the majority here in the House. We're 1/3 of the so-called power structure here in Washington. And we think it would be a bad idea to have 2 government shutdown scenarios in 2014. We think that will take us off of focusing on Obamacare, focusing on our oversight, rolling out a positive agenda to grow the economy and create jobs. More to the point, you're not going to get everything you want in divided government. Our budget is what we want. Our budget balances the budget, pays off the debt, and does so within a decade, and that's what we want. This isn't our budget. This is a modest step in the right direction that says more deficit reduction, less military cuts, and no tax increases. That, to me, advances our principles. Here's the other point. Remember the super committee? The super committee was supposed to replace the sequester with cuts in mandatory spending. This replaces a small portion of the sequester with cuts in mandatory spending. And more importantly, in the super committee, it's supposed to be dollar for dollar. We're exceeding that. We're actually saving more money for net deficit reduction than what we put back in the sequester. So we're surpassing the goal of the super committee in this small agreement.
Donnie Deutsch.
Congressman Ryan, Congratulations. I made a point earlier, as I often do. I advise Republicans across this country, and saw
wear
that
tight black T-shirts.
Speaker Boehner barking back at the heritage groups of the world for the first time ever. Is this a harbinger of things to come, that there is possibly a new playbook for Republicans in 2014 running for office, that you do not have to unequivocally bow to these groups?
Look, I don't think about that stuff, honestly. I'm just focused on doing my job, representing my constituents, and doing what I think is right, and advancing my principles. Look, there's this older British guy who's often said, you can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you just might find you get what you need.
Mr. Jagger.
Churchill.
Yes.
Is either Churchill or Jagger? I don't know. Willie?
Congressman Ryan, it's Willie Guy. It's good to see you this morning.
Hey, Willie, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. You've said this morning this is a good step in the right direction. You said earlier this week this is a good first step. What do you mean by that? What is it a step toward? Do you believe that a grand bargain is still out there somewhere? And if so, what makes you believe that? Because, man, we've been watching this fight go on for decades and generations over raising revenue on one side and making entitlement cuts on the other. Is there hope in there? Do you see something different now than you've seen in the past?
No, I don't see any difference in the likelihood of a grand bargain, to be honest with you, Willie. But I do like the idea that we're learning how to talk to each other. We're learning how to get things done without compromising principles. My hope is we can do tax reform next year. Look, I fought for means testing Medicare. I fought for raising the age limit in a very reasonable way on future retirees. That was completely rejected. Those things, I think, make a big difference on our entitlement trajectory. And I just don't see that kind of thing happening. But I would like to think that's a step in the right direction, which is maybe we can work on tax reform. Maybe there's some other things we can get done, because I'm really worried about this economy. The Fed's going to start tapering. I want to get a foundation underneath this economy, get people back to work. And just getting this divided government working at a minimal level, I think, is a step in the right direction. That's basically what I mean when I say that.
Hey, Congressman, talking about getting people back to work, extension of unemployment benefits, not part of your negotiation with Patty Murray, not part of this deal. They run out December 28th. What are the prospects for doing something about that problem before the 28th? Where are you on that problem? Would you vote for or against an extension?
Well, they wanted to put this in this agreement without any offsets, which would have blown a $20 to $25 billion hole in our savings. It was a last-minute request with no offsets, so we didn't see that as particularly very serious. Look, the Speaker said it very clearly. He will entertain a proposal from the President that pays for it, that has offsets, and that also has some pro-growth reforms to actually grow the economy, not just finance unemployment, but actually get people in jobs working. We have yet to see, as far as I know, any proposal coming.
Hey, Paul, really quickly, also one other issue. Yesterday in the Wall Street Journal, NBC Wall Street Journal poll, a large number of Americans in support of raising the minimum wage to $10 per hour, including, I think, a majority of self-identified Tea Party members. You're from a swing district in Wisconsin, a district that Democrats win in presidential races as much as Republicans. What's your take on that issue, and what do you hear back at home?
It may be good politics. It may sound good. It may look good on a bumper sticker. It's really bad economics. It actually ends up causing more job losses. It is the wrong way to go economically. We should be focused on the kinds of reforms that actually grow jobs and put people back to work. You know, lowering tax rates, having a competitive tax code, cleaning up our regulatory state, letting this energy boom take off, you know, getting our spending more under control so that we don't have an interest rate problem down the road. There's no substitute, Joe, for pro-growth policies that actually get people back to work and grow the economy. These things are very poor substitutes, and they're counterproductive.
All right.
Congressman Paul Ryan, thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Paul.
You too, Mika.